So in this video, I wanted to run through some very common pen refills just to create a reference video for anyone with any questions. A lot of these refills are standard, but they're all popular sizes that will come up in any conversation about pen refills or upgrading your ink or finding a new ink for a pen body you like, stuff like that. So this should answer pretty much maybe like 90% of the questions out there. So here goes. And then if you have any questions below, let me know. First off, we'll go with the smallest common refill, and this is called the D1. And this is a standard size refill, generally used in ballpoint multi-pens. It's also sold in a gel. Sometimes it's plastic, sometimes it's metal, but usually it's a metal ballpoint used in all sorts of different multi-pens. And anytime you see a D1, it will be interchangeable with other D1s. That's what I mean when I say it's a standard. In particular, this is a Kaweco Sol 1.2 millimeter, but there are lots of them out there. I have done a video in the past about the best D1 refills. Here we have probably the single most commonly referred to refill on this channel, and this is a Parker G2 or Parker style G2 refill. It's not made by Parker. There are other G2 refills, which we'll get to in a minute, but this is a Parker style G2 refill. Usually a metal body, sometimes it's plastic. Almost always has this sort of serrated looking cap for rotating, and it has this long skinny end. And anytime you see someone say Parker style G2 refill, any of them will work. This is a Schmitt EasyFlow 9000. It's my favorite, but there are many others out there. And while we're on the subject, there's another refill called a Pilot G2 refill, and that's this. It's unfortunate that they're both called the G2 refills. So as you can see, they are different sizes. They have a different contour, so even if they were the same size, the front ends are different, but you just have to know that this is a Parker style G2 refill. It is made by other companies aside from Parker. In fact, many other companies, but is a Parker style. And now here we have the Pilot G2 refill. Sometimes people call it a Japanese G2 refill or just a G2 refill, but this is usually a gel refill, usually plastic body. And it has this sort of stepped front, which is usually has the spring will extend up to this step right here, and it'll have a spring at the front. So that is the, as you can see, Pilot G2 refill. And while we're on the subject of refills, all the stuff on here, it usually will make some sense if you know what you're looking for. In this case, we see Pilot, we see G2, like here, G2-5, and it's just a 0.5 millimeter G2 refill. So I think that's good for that one. Here we have a Zebra F Series refill. This is interesting because it is deceptively like the Parker G2 style, but they're not interchangeable. Zebra uses these. I would say it's a proprietary size and shape, and it's used on the F701 and other Zebra pens. So online they might look the same, but here I could tell you they are clearly not the same. That's why to get a Parker G2 style refill into your Zebra F Series pen, like your F701, it takes a little bit of work. It's not impossible, but clearly different refills. Here we have a Pentel Lr Refill. This is another popular G2 style refill. It's usually not an exact match for the G2, but they are close enough that they will sometimes work interchangeably. But they're, I guess maybe I misspoke when I said it's a G2 style refill, but it is very similar in mold to the Pilot G2. The Pentel Lr, very popular series of refills, and they will fit a number of different pens. So worth keeping that in mind, that if you have a pen that requires a larger refill, the Pentel Lr is a good option. And that gets us to these. This one in particular, this is a Montblanc refill. This doesn't have an official name, but I would call this a European Rollerball refill. And you can see it is long and it is skinny. The more important of those two characteristics is how long it is. These European high-end rollerballs, such that found in like Montblanc and Conklin and other companies like that, tend to use these very long rollerball refills. And you can see these two, or these styles, are not exactly the same, but they're close enough that the refills are often interchangeable. The manufacturers wouldn't say so, and if you're on a pen refill website, they wouldn't say so, but in actuality, you could usually put some sort of shim in here and get these things to line up. But we'll talk about all the mods and hacks and stuff like that another day. The point here is that this is a European rollerball refill. In this case, it's the Montblanc. And there are a number of refills that fit this size and will be interchangeable with this exactly. Next, we're going to move on to the Schmitt P Series. This is the P8127, but anytime you see the P, that means it is a short version of a Schmitt rollerball refill. And this one, the Schmitt is made for European style rollerballs, but it is not an exact fit for the Montblanc. Clearly quite different. One of the important things with the Schmitt to know is that it has a very wide diameter, so that will prohibit it from fitting in a lot of pens, especially Japanese pens. Here you can see the diameter of the Schmitt on the left versus that of the Montblanc. Schmitt is a good deal thicker than most refills. Next, we'll compare the two Schmitts. Here we have a Schmitt 8120, and this is the 8127. This is a P8127. The important thing to note is that the P is short, the non-P is long. The 812 is standard, and then the 7 or 0 at the end, that just determines the diameter of the tip. 0 meaning 1 millimeter, 7 meaning 0.7 millimeters. But again, the important thing is that 812X is long, P812X is short. And these will fit in some Montblanc style refills. The 8120, 8127, 8126, those will fit in higher end refills like in a nice European rollerball. Sometimes they'll be interchangeable with the Montblanc, but a lot of times you have to worry about the extra diameter that the Schmitt pens come with. You could use it in something like this Lamy Swift. One refill that's very similar and interchangeable with the Montblanc refill would be this. This is the Schmitt ceramic rollerball refill, the 888. The important thing to note here is it's a different company, and it makes a solid, pretty much direct replacement refill for Montblanc and other European rollerballs. It's a little short, so maybe it won't be ideal for Montblanc, but will fit in something like a Conklin. You can see the similar contours and roughly the similar length. Interesting to note that the 888 uses a plastic body. That doesn't really have any material difference. It keeps cost and weight down. It's also sold in something called a 5888, which is a metal body. This is a proprietary cartridge, but it's worth noting this is the Lamy M63. It's very similar to the Lamy M66, which I don't have here. One's for capped pens, that's the M63. One is for capless, like clicker style pens, that's the M66. And this is a larger metal refill. It's very similar to the Montblanc, but not necessarily perfectly interchangeable. And again, it's just a larger refill. Metal body and and a little bit different contour up front. But again, this is one that comes up on this channel fairly often, the M63 or the M66. In the same vein as that, we have the Lamy M16, and you can see this one has the weirdest shape yet by a long shot. This is a highly proprietary Lamy Ballpoint Refill. Matching this profile with pretty much anything is extremely difficult. That's why I find a lot of people shy away from Lamy ballpoints, because replacing this with anything aside from a Mont, which is a company that specifically is allowed to make Lamy style refills, is very difficult. This is a Fisher PR or Fisher Space Pen refill, and you can see it uses a proprietary size, the just a Fisher all metal pressurized refill. It's very similar to the Zebra, which I believe Zebra copied. They're not exactly the same, but they're very similar. So that's why I think one of the reasons why Zebra has these somewhat oddly shaped refills. If you put it next to the Space Pen refill, it seems to be almost exactly the same shape and size. And then the interesting thing about the Fisher Space Pen refill is that if you put this included little piece on it, it will convert to being a Parker G2 refill, pretty much exactly, and it'll fit in pretty much any Parker style G2 pen. So clever little included add-on by Fisher. Then this isn't very common, but I did want to show this off, which it's probably the largest conventional rollerball refill that you might find. And here we have the Schmitt 8127, the Schmitt P, and then we'll throw in the normal Montblanc if I can find it. It may have fallen. No, here it is. Anyway, and this big guy is called the Montblanc LeGrand, and that is just a monster refill from Montblanc. And you can see it's not super long relative to the normal Montblanc, but it's very large. Finding a pen that will accommodate a Montblanc LeGrand is extremely difficult. So usually you just have to buy a very high-end European rollerball to fit something like that. And those refills are not cheap either. It's like a $10 or $12 refill. So generally, unless you know for a fact your pen will support it, don't go ahead and buy this. Just finding something that uses it is very difficult. And lastly, I just wanted to go back to an old school ballpoint refill. So a lot of refills out there that will just look something like this, and sometimes they'll be shorter, sometimes they'll be longer. Usually they'll be open with some sort of sponge or something at the end, and that's just a normal flexi cheapo ballpoint refill that you used to see so many times and probably don't see as much lately as people move largely to gel and hybrid style inks. And these are still alive and kicking. Notable characteristics are the little wings here, and that will be used to stop any spring that will go up. The open back, the skinniness of this, and that has a lot to do with the fact that the oil-based ink in a ballpoint tends to last for a long time. You know, it's not water-based, so you don't need as much liquid in there, stuff in there to get a lot of writing done. These things tend to last forever, even without a huge capacity. And that's just a stand-in for all the many ballpoints we still use day to day. So I hope that helped. I know it could have been a little bit better organized, but there are a lot of different refills, and telling them apart is really difficult. If you have any questions, please leave a note below, and I'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. Thanks.